I was there, just a silent shadow observing the whole tragic mess. This wasn't a home. It was a stage for slow-motion cruelty. The house, all remodeled and modern, belonged to Marcus and his ambitious wife, Jasmine, but the land, the bones of the place, had always been Eleanor's now. This proud African-American woman, a retired high school teacher who'd given up her life for her son, was confined to a small, almost invisible nook, her presence barely tolerated, like an uncomfortable intruder. The confrontation happened when Marcus summoned her to the main living room. I remember Eleanor's hands were still damp from washing Amara's, her granddaughter's, laundry. Marcus was standing with Jasmine beside him, her arms crossed tight, looking every bit the cold accomplice. Marcus, without preamble, dropped the hammer. "Mom, we need to talk. We're tight on money. We can't afford to support another person." Another person? Can you imagine? Calling the woman who bore you another person? Eleanor whispered the truth. "I'm your mother." Marcus. But he was already committed to the heartless script, delivering the final, brutal line with chilling nonchalance. "If you don't want to go to a nursing home, you'll have to get a job." I saw the raw, unspeakable pain hit her. It wasn't just the suggestion. It was the profound lack of affection, memory, or gratitude with which he delivered it. This was the son for whom she had to learn how to breathe again. After his father's death, for him, she had worked as a teacher, tutored students in the afternoons, and even sold used books on weekends at the flea market. For him, she had made the ultimate sacrifice, selling her own wedding ring just to pay for a 12-week computer programming camp when he was 12. She truly believed she was raising a nobleman. Instead, she was raising her own executioner. She remembered the letters he used to write, small promises on notebook paper. "Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a house with a garden. You'll have a porch swing and lots of cats." Promises that had faded with time. But Eleanor didn't yell. She didn't beg. She simply looked at him and smiled a horrifying smile that signaled a choice. The kind of smile you wear right before you die inside, or before you are reborn in absolute fury. She got up slowly, without a single word. She went to her small room, took her reliable 22-inch blue suitcase, the same one she had used years ago, when she first moved out of the house where she had raised this very man. She packed a few things she had left, a couple of books, an old photo album, and, critically, a single letter. That letter was her secret weapon. Months earlier, a lifeline had appeared out of the blue. It was from Isaiah, a love from her youth whom she had never forgotten. They had started talking on the phone, then video calls. Isaiah, who lived down south in North Carolina and owned his own farmland, had told her the words she desperately needed to hear. "I never stopped loving you, Eleanor, and if you'll let me, I want to see you again." That was a hand extended in the middle of an abyss. When Marcus gave his ultimatum, Eleanor's decision was already final. She wasn't going to make a scene or scream. She just smiled, went to her room, and started packing. She looked in the mirror, saw her wrinkles and her graying hair, but also saw something she'd lost long ago: courage. The woman they thought they were getting rid of was about to walk out. And she wasn't coming back. The ticking of the wall clock was the countdown to her escape. She wasn't alone anymore. After the click of her small door, a terrible silence descended upon the house, the kind of quiet that precedes a cataclysm. I knew she was in there, packing that blue suitcase. But neither Marcus nor Jasmine dared to approach her. Their contempt had been a wall. But Eleanor's current self-possession was a far more formidable, frightening force. Exactly 1 hour later, that fragile stillness was shattered by the deep, resonant growl of a powerful engine. It wasn't the sound of an ordinary car. This was the rumble of luxury and consequence. A car, sleek, black, and gleaming, pulled up slowly. stopping with dramatic finality right outside the wrought iron gate. From the window, I watched Jasmine peer out. Her brow furrowed instantly, a mixture of confusion and irritation crossing her face. Clearly, this wasn't a taxi or some cheap ride. This vehicle looked like it belonged on a private estate or a movie set. Marcus rushed toward the gate, and I heard him call out for his mother, his voice laced with the usual strained annoyance. He probably thought Eleanor was staging some pathetic attempt to draw attention. But this time, Eleanor did not answer. She emerged from the nook she had called home, walked through the living room without a word, gripping her suitcase, her head held high. It was a complete transformation in posture, from the burdened mother to a woman who had finally found her absolute nerve. When Eleanor reached the gate, Marcus stood there, frowning and utterly Jasmine had her arms crossed tight, her lips pursed as if she'd bitten into something rancid. But the most heart-wrenching sight was Amara, her granddaughter, watching from the hallway with large, honey-colored eyes. Eleanor didn't spare a word for her son or her daughter-in-law. She didn't need to. Her silence had been their tool of control. Now, it was her weapon of liberation. She pushed the iron gate open, and the cool wind hit her face. The car was right there, a black Mercedes-Benz S, polished to reflect the night, its engine still running, as if it knew she wouldn't hesitate or change her mind. The rear door opened, and he stepped out as "Good afternoon, Eleanor," he said, moving with an effortless elegance. "I've been waiting for you." I saw Jasmine's scowl deepen. She literally looked incapable of processing the scene before her. Marcus took a step forward, his voice rising in panic and confusion. "Who is this guy? What are you doing here?" Isaiah offered his hand to Eleanor. She took it, completing the connection that had been broken for decades. He answered Marcus, pointedly not looking at him. "Isaiah Reynolds. I'm a friend of your mother's, and I'm here to pick her up." He paused just long enough for the words to sink in, then delivered the final blow. "She has nothing left to do here." The word mother seemed to hit Marcus like a physical slap. He blinked, struggling to reconcile the reality he was seeing with the image he held of his mother. Finally, he spoke to Eleanor. "What are you doing? You're leaving with a stranger, just like that." For the first time, Eleanor spoke. Her voice was level, almost impossibly calm. "I'm not leaving with a stranger. I'm leaving with someone who sees me, who listens to me, who values me, something you stopped doing a long time ago." Jasmine let out a scoffing, sarcastic laugh. "Oh my goodness, this is like a soap opera. Running off with some rich old man now. Seriously." Isaiah smiled, but his eyes held an icy firmness. "Ma'am, you started the soap opera when you decided to treat this woman like she was trash." He adjusted his jacket, his composure unnerving. "Today is just the end of the first act. Get ready for what's coming next." He helped Eleanor into the car. She closed the door, and through the window, she saw Amara running toward the gate. "Grandma, wait." Isaiah stopped the car. Eleanor rolled down the window. Amara reached into her pocket, handing her a folded piece of paper, a drawing. Eleanor pulled her close for a fierce hug, whispering the most important lesson of all. "Never let them tell you what you're worth, my love. Not even your own blood." The car pulled away, and Eleanor did not look back. The first few miles were silent. She watched the streets that had witnessed her carrying grocery bags in through the back door as if she were staff, and swallowing insults for not bringing in income. Every tree, every post was a witness to her silence. And now they were witnesses to her departure. Isaiah drove smoothly, as if he had all the time in the world. "Are you all right?" he asked softly, without taking his eyes off the road. Eleanor nodded, but quickly corrected herself. "I don't know if I'm all right, but I'm awake, and that's a miracle." He smiled, gently taking her hand. "Do you want to go straight home, or do you want to stop somewhere first?" "Do you have time?" she asked. I have a lifetime. Eleanor laughed. After so long, she laughed genuinely. And in that moment, she knew it. She wasn't the woman who walked with her head bowed anymore. She was someone else, or rather, she was finally starting to become the person she was before fear took over. After the hum of the Mercedes faded away, the silence on the road wasn't the kind of tense, loaded silence she'd left behind. This was a wide, open, generous quiet, the sound of possibility. Isaiah drove Eleanor south, down the highways and onto the back, until the landscape shifted from manicured suburban lawns to vast stretches of open country. I learned later that the destination was Isaiah's farmhouse in North Carolina. It wasn't some gaudy modern mansion. It was a rustic, beautiful place with a deep, wraparound porch. A magnificent old oak tree in the front yard, perfect for a swing. And a library that Eleanor immediately fell in love with, shelves packed with well-loved books. The next few weeks were Eleanor's great undoing and rebuilding. She no longer had to rush to turn off a light because someone might complain about the electricity bill, or worry about folding a towel just so. There was no one to criticize her choice of tea or remind her, implicitly or explicitly, that she was a burden. The tension that had tightened her shoulders for years simply melted away. She began to live again. She sat on that porch swing every morning, watching the sun rise over the low hills, smelling the rich, damp earth. She started writing again, too, not just journals, but small stories and poetry that had been choked out by the atmosphere of Marcus's home. She found a pen and notebook, and the words flowed. Stories of her mother, of David, and even little narratives about a brave woman who leaves the place that tried to kill her spirit. She was healing in the most profound way. I thought, finally, she is where she belongs. But the past, I've learned, always sends out a search party. One evening, as Eleanor was sitting by the fireplace, reading a worn copy of Langston Hughes, her phone buzzed. It was Marcus. I could almost hear the hesitation on his end, the sheer awkwardness of the call. Eleanor answered, her voice calm and neutral. "Hello, Marcus." His voice, usually so booming and self-assured, was small and shaky. "Mom, I need to talk to you. It's bad." Eleanor didn't press. She just waited. Then the confession came tumbling out, raw and pathetic. "Jazz left me. She said I wasn't man enough, whatever that means. She cleaned out the joint bank account, took her jewelry, and just ... left. She took the house, too. And she left Amara." Marcus, the man who had told his mother she was another person they couldn't afford to keep, was now completely broken and alone. He was forced to utter the words he had denied her for years. "I need you. Mom, I really, really need you." Eleanor had waited for that sentence for decades. She had longed for it, prayed for it, sometimes even wept over the possibility of hearing it. But now that it was here, it didn't hurt. It simply felt like a statement of fact, a sad, inevitable consequence of his own actions. "I needed you too, Marcus," she replied gently, but with firm finality. "For many years. And you weren't there." He started to spiral, rambling about lawyers and apartments and how he was going to lose his job. Eleanor cut him off. "Get to the point, Marcus. What exactly do you need?" "I need you to take Amara," he admitted. "Just for a few weeks. Until I can get on my feet and figure out the custody situation. I can't take her with me to the small place I'm moving to. And I don't trust the daycare centers." This was the opening she needed. The ultimatum had been hers, not his. "I will take Amara," Eleanor said. "But not for you. I will take her because she is my grandchild, and she deserves to be loved and safe. She will come to North Carolina." She then laid out her terms, her voice becoming the stern teacher he once knew. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Marcus, but I can listen to you. And that is a start. But if I take Amara, You will not use this as an excuse to come and live here. And it will not be on your terms. Amara has every right to see me. You, my son, will have to earn the privilege of visiting your own daughter. She hung up the phone, feeling a profound sense of control. She had saved herself. And now she had a chance to save Amara from the same cold fate she had endured. The cycle of silent suffering was about to be broken. Amara's arrival at the farm was not a quiet transition. It was a joyful explosion. The moment she saw Eleanor, she ran, throwing herself into her grandmother's arms with a force that nearly knocked them both over. "Grandma, I thought you didn't want to see me anymore." Eleanor held her tight, the feel of the child's small body a balm to her soul. Amara was safe now, nestled in the kind of quiet, secure love that Marcus's chaotic world couldn't offer. The first meeting between Marcus and Eleanor took place 2 weeks later. On the porch swing, Amara was inside with Isaiah, who wisely kept her distracted with a fresh batch of chocolate chip cookies. Marcus was no longer the arrogant suit-wearing executive. He looked tired, defeated, and genuinely remorseful. He spoke for a long time, an agonizing, honest torrent of admissions. "You were right about everything. Mom, I failed you." He admitted to being a coward, letting Jasmine treat her poorly, making his mother feel like a burden. And worst of all, ignoring it because it made his own life easier. He hung his head, a truly pathetic sight. "I know I don't have an excuse. But I'm here because I'm lonely. And because I finally realize what you've done for me all these years." Eleanor looked out at the distant tree line. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Marcus," she said honestly. "But I can listen. That is a start." The conversation felt like a slow, painful surgery, but the wound needed lancing. However, Marcus hadn't completely changed his stripes. When he returned a few days later, fortified with a new apartment lease in Denver, Colorado, he tried to slide back into the familiar dynamic. He proposed that Eleanor and Amara move with him. "You could help me with Amara," he pitched, his voice already returning to that managerial tone. "You'd have your own space, Mom." Eleanor saw the trap instantly. He was still viewing her as a functioner-free babysitter, a domestic convenience to fill the holes in his life. "Thank you for the offer, Marcus, but no," she stated, her voice utterly firm. "My life is here now. Amara is welcome here for as long as she needs me, but this is home." The final nail in the coffin of his plan came from Amara herself. When Marcus tried to explain the move to his daughter, Amara held Eleanor's hand fiercely. "I want to stay with Grandma," the little girl said, tears welling up. "I feel loved here. Over there, I felt forgotten." The chain of expectation and silent obedience that had bound Eleanor was officially broken, shattered by a child's pure need for stability. The true battle, however, was yet to come. Jasmine, furious at being replaced and losing control of her daughter, decided to fight back. She sent a menacing legal letter to Eleanor, accusing her of unlawful detainment and emotional manipulation of a minor. Jasmine was demanding immediate physical custody. Eleanor and Isaiah, now an inseparable team, rallied. They hired a sharp lawyer named Victor, and they had one crucial piece of evidence: Amara's unwavering testimony. At the final custody hearing, Jasmine arrived, immaculate and cold, wearing the mask of a dethroned queen. Eleanor walked in with Isaiah, her hand steady, but her heart racing. Amara did not attend, per the judge's recommendation. The judge read the reports and listened to the lawyers. The tension in the courtroom was a living thing. Finally, the judge looked at Jasmine's lawyer, and then directly at Eleanor. "Ms. Jasmine Holloway," he stated, his voice ringing with authority, "we find no grounds to revoke the temporary custody granted to Ms. Eleanor Hayes as a provisional caregiver. The minor has clearly expressed her wishes, documented by a court-appointed psychologist, stating she feels protected, understood, and happy. Therefore, Custody will remain as is, with scheduled supervised visitation for the mother. Eleanor won. But it wasn't just a legal victory. She had won back her life, her love, and her soul. She was no longer the woman silently swallowing insults. She was a fighter, and more importantly, she had secured a better future for her granddaughter, teaching her the ultimate lesson she had learned at a high cost. Never let them tell you what you're worth. I saw it all, and I knew this wasn't the end of her story. It was the beautiful beginning. The gavel fell, and the judge's words cemented the victory. Eleanor, not Jasmine, was the steady hand Amara needed. It wasn't just a legal win. It was the final, definitive end to the years of silent sacrifice. Eleanor found her true home, her true love in Isaiah, and most importantly, she broke the cycle of disrespect. She taught Amara the priceless lesson she had paid so dearly for. Your worth is not negotiable, and it certainly isn't determined by those who need you most. She walked out of that courthouse, not as a former burden, but as the powerful matriarch of a future built on love and suffering. Don't let the power of these stories end here. If you were moved by Eleanor's journey from silent suffering to triumphant freedom, hit the subscribe button. I share powerful true-to-life narratives like this every week. Subscribe to my channel now and tap the notification bell so you don't miss any of these incredible human stories. Your subscription helps keep these voices heard.